This week's We Need to Talk is brought to you by our friends at Manscaped. You can get 20% off all Manscaped products and free shipping, by the way, as well as supporting the channel, which really helps us out by going to manscaped.com and using the code FOOTBALLDAILY20. All one word, that's FOOTBALLDAILY20 on manscaped.com. Right, let's crack on with the show, because as ever, this is the show that looks at football on the internet over the past 7 days. 7 days that see Angel Di Maria taking Kylian Mbappe's soul.
6, 7, 8.
Alexandre Lacazette attempting to hype up Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang's trim. Ugh.
Some noise, Travis Scott is in the f***ing building. Make, yeah! Shot to the gram, shot to the gram. Shot to the ground, woo, sexy boy. Shot to the ground, woo, shot to the ground, yeah, Travis Scott.
And KDB signing a long-term contract.
To get the extension now at my age feels also like a very proud moment, because obviously it means that they trust me until I get really old in football terms. So
Anyway, today we need to talk about the England squad again. Alright, this week we're trying something a little bit different. Over the last few weeks I've been delivering my squad, or at least players that I think will be in and around the 23-man England squad come Euro 2020. But on Monday, on I would say the UK's finest footballing product, Monday Night Football, Gary Neville and Jamie Carragher broke down their squads. So I thought today would be the perfect opportunity to react to their 23-man squads. I think they each did one. And the England conversation as a whole. Now, I haven't watched the England segment of Monday Night Football in its full yet. I've watched little clips that I've seen on Twitter and on Instagram, as I'm sure you guys have at home. But I'm going to be reacting live to it today. Let's not waste any more time. Let's have a gander.
Well, it does seem like the time that England squads are on everybody's mind. We have the European Championships a couple of months away. And this is the moment we've been looking forward to. They both get the chance to pick their 23.
Gareth's excited.
And we don't know each other's squads here, do we?
You don't. Gary's actually been in this position before, obviously with Roy Hodgson. So before we
That went
actually
well,
get into
didn't
the before we get into the names,
No need. Absolutely no need for it.
I think obviously, I think the same for every England manager. You're always talking about 2 or 3. You pick the first 20. They just come to everyone's lips. I don't think anybody questions them. I think specific issues for Gareth will be...
I agree with Gary there, by the way. The 20 of the 23-man squad, I would say probably more 18 in 2020, are pretty much nailed on. Everybody's going to pick roughly 18, at least 17 of the same names, but Gary's saying 20, and who am I to judge?
I always think, imagine losing a player. So you lose Harry Maguire. That's a big problem for Gareth Southgate.
his biggest problem?
Yeah, I think it's his biggest problem, because
Don't agree with Gary there that losing Harry Maguire would be Gareth Southgate's biggest problem. I can see what he's getting at, that obviously there's not much depth in our centre-back position, is there? I still think losing Declan Rice would be a slightly bigger blow, and I definitely think losing Harry Kane would be our biggest blow, because he's so much better than all of our other striking options. But nevertheless, I see what he's getting at. Harry Maguire is an integral part of this England side, no matter what the memes say. Comment what you want about Harry Maguire being a fridge. He's still a fantastic centre-back. Get over it.
Because I think if you then got John Stones left as your other centre-back, and you think you've got Stones and Mings as your centre-backs, Stones and Cody, Stones and Dyer, I'm not having it.
You think Harry Maguire's a bigger loss than Harry Kane?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do. For
No,
this squad,
he's not, Gary.
For this particular squad, look, Harry Kane's the best player in the squad. But for this particular squad, if Gareth wants to have a back four and go 4-3-3, the only chance of that is keeping Harry Maguire fit, in my mind. I think you've seen Cody in the back four tonight. Mings in the back four, I like him, but I don't think he can play in the back four at the level we're talking about in terms of winning a tournament. And that's what Gareth's got to try and do, and what he'll be thinking he can do.
Who fills in?
I kind of agree with Gary there. I do think our centre-back depth is probably the biggest issue in the squad, to be honest with you. Our forward depth is fantastic. Our midfield depth is improving with the likes of Jude Bellingham breaking through. I do think our centre-backs are probably the weakest area of the team, and I think everybody would agree with that, wouldn't they?
There's two problems that England managers that I've seen have over a 25-year period. One where they try and have faith in a player that's injured. To get a player who's fit, maybe...
That is 100% the truth about England managers in the past. The amount of times I have seen Sven-Göran Eriksson or Roy Hodgson or Fabio Capello pick a player who's missed the last 3 months of the season in the hope he's ready and fit and available for game week 2 of a major championship is horrifying. I really hope Gareth doesn't do that this year. If Jordan Henderson doesn't play in the next 2 months, I would be really reticent to taking him with England to the Euros. Even though he's so crucial to our team, it's better to have players that are fit, firing at the top of their game, than trying to get players who are 75% fit and haven't played in 2 months back to match fitness. Totally agree with Gary on that one.
Maybe for the second game, up to speed, when you've got elite performers having been there for 4 weeks getting ready, it very rarely gets them right. So that's one way in which I don't think Gareth will be caught out by. The next is where you think, well, I won't take a second left back because so-and-so can play there. It doesn't work. It'll catch you out. Left back, right back. I think you ended up playing right back in the tournament once, didn't you? When I got
me
injured.
out.
Yeah, no, I got injured and Carragher was the backup right back. And it doesn't work, and then David Beckham, I think, ended up playing right back. So you try and pinch a position, that doesn't work. So for me, the two key positions on the pitch, I think Declan Rice being injured is a problem. I'd go with Maguire.
Definitely
just
is.
because of the lack
Huge
of depth
issue.
behind Maguire. So Kane's the most important player. But Maguire, the problem is the lack of depth behind Maguire as a dominant centre-back is nil, in my opinion. So Maguire, Kane and then Rice, I think are the key players I would say you wouldn't want to get injured.
But Jamie also went to a tournament and didn't play. So are you thinking about trying to pick a squad where everyone is going to be involved, or are you thinking about good characters who might not complain if they're not involved?
Definitely, that's a factor
Like
as well. No, you're definitely thinking that as well, because the lads who aren't...
The one thing I'll say about this current crop of England players that I think maybe is different from Gary and Jamie's day, actually, is that they seem a lot more of a unit. At the World Cup, that was something I really noticed, that Gareth Southgate had got them gelling much better. I think when we had the golden generation, the Stevie Gs, the Lampards, there was definitely an element of like partisanship within the squad. These players from this team, they're in a little clique. These players from this team, they're in a little clique. I don't think that's the case so much in the modern day. It feels like everybody's a lot friendlier with each other, if that makes sense. I don't know if that's fair or not.
But what Gareth will be thinking is the big thing for Gareth, for me, would be around back four, back three. If Maguire's not fit, I think it becomes a back three. Because I don't see Stones and Dyer.
Maguire's going to be fit. Maguire's always fit. He never misses a game, Harry. I genuinely think he plays 90 minutes every week. I can't remember the last time he didn't play 90 minutes for United.
Well, remember, we talked earlier about what we think that Gareth might do, particularly around the right-back position, but this is very much what Gary and Jamie are planning to do, or would be planning to do, and you've agreed on 20. So let's have a look at those names to start things off, and we'll dive.
All right, before I hear their reasoning and stuff, these are the 20 names. Obviously, each international squad gets to take 23 players with them to the European Championships. These are the 20 names that both Jamie Carragher and Gary Neville agreed upon on Monday Night Football, that both of them had in their squad. Now, they hadn't seen each other's selections before this moment, so they've basically agreed on the majority of players. I'm just having a look here. Is there anyone I wouldn't or would have? The goalkeepers, I think we'd all have the same three. It's no surprise to see they agreed with that one there. 7 defenders they've agreed upon there, and one of them's Tyrone Mings. Now, that's really interesting to me because Tyrone Mings wouldn't be in my England 23. I don't think he's the best English centre-back at Aston Villa right now. I think that's Ezri Konsa. I would probably have Michael Keane ahead of him in the reckoning as well, to be totally honest with you. I think he's an okay defender, but he's still a bit rash. So he wouldn't have been in my 23. Definitely wouldn't have been in my 7 defenders list that they've agreed on. The midfielders, probably the same. I would have the same names on there in agreement. I'm really surprised they haven't both agreed on Jadon Sancho. Now that feels like one of them's going to have picked him and one of them won't. So I'm interested to see who picked Jadon and who didn't pick Jadon Sancho.
Digest these. The
Who's
goalkeepers.
this one?
This is what you've both agreed with, the 20 players that you've both picked.
You've gone for Trent. You've bottled it.
This is...
Now, for anybody who didn't see this earlier in the show, Gary Neville basically was reasoning why Gareth Southgate might not take Trent Alexander-Arnold, potentially playing as a wing-back in a back three might not work. You might see that Kyle Walker and Reece James are slightly more physical defenders than Trent Alexander-Arnold. So Carragher's definitely going to go in on Gary for this selection.
You argued for this at the beginning. You turned at the last minute. You argued for Kieran Trippier.
Honestly, it's like dealing with Donald Trump and Boris Johnson. You shout loud. It's like a fan TV, honestly.
You said at the start, Kieran Trippier is the best at playing wing-back and has got the best set-piece delivery.
Oh my gosh, can I just, honestly, you asked
Do
me...
you believe that?
Let me finish. You asked me a question before the show. Why would Gareth not want to take Trent?
Question.
Thank you. So I then said, these are the reasons why I think he would be looking at Trippier and say Walker as being better options. I would take Trent Alexander-Arnold.
Who wouldn't? I mean, there are people at home that like to use Trent as a meme, and I'm slightly concerned after the Madrid game midweek that Trent is now going to be put in this sort of category with, the likes of Harry Maguire, who just can't escape the banter. Even though they are really fantastic players, they are forever, amongst the football Twitter community and certain football fans, seen as useless. Whereas Trent, over the last 2 years, has been the best right-back in the world, or at least in contention in the top two. He's got the best attacking output of any of our right-back options. And yes, he might have flaked in a little bit defensively against Madrid, but you can't tell me you still wouldn't take him, even if you start Walker. Surely you take Trent.
Do you think Kieran Trippier is a better wing-back than Trent?
I think
and he's got more experience in a tournament?
He's got more experience in a tournament, that's a fact. He's played more at wing-back for England, that's a fact.
Yes, and you said he was better at set pieces.
He served Gareth Southgate well.
So why are you not taking him then, if he's that good?
I'm going to tell you what Gareth will be thinking.
How do you know what Gareth's thinking?
Oh, my... Because it's obvious. He's left him out last week and picked Trippier.
OK, so you're telling me why? Why are you not picking Kieran Trippier then?
Am I missing something here?
Well, that's a fair question. Why do he not be in your squad, Trippier?
Well, we don't know he's not.
Because he's just come off the back of a 12-week ban is the reason he wouldn't be in mine.
And really, in the last season, Calvin Phillips has come from nowhere to be in both your squads.
He plays the position really well in that midfield too, alongside Rice. I think he plays... What Gareth's been really good at and fantastic at, other than doing a great job, is that he's played players who are in form and in position. So if you think about it, Trent Alexander-Arnold for Liverpool...
Now that sounds simple, of picking players that are in form and in position, but let me tell you, England managers do not classically do this. I'm seeing Paul Scholes left mid, Wayne Rooney central midfield, David Beckham central midfield, fullbacks playing centre half, just absolute chaos. Jamie Vardy as a left wing back. It has happened in the past. So what Gary is saying there is spot on, because that is something Southgate has actually done better than some managers that have got much bigger pedigree, the likes of Fabio Capello in the past.
All right, let's have a look at the differences between these two squads then, and we'll have a look at Gary's completed.
So this is Gary's 2020 squad. So obviously we saw the 20 names that him and Carragher have agreed upon. The 3 additions, Eric Dyer, not for me. Not by a long shot for me. Doesn't even start for Tottenham at the moment, does he? And I know that Gary's thinking probably he can offer options as a defensive midfielder as well. But I wouldn't take Tyrone Mings or Eric Dyer, to be totally honest with you. I'd swap both of those out for Michael Keane and Ezri Konsa. Now, I'm aware Ezri Konsa is not going to go in Gareth's mind, but this is, if I was selecting my 23, Ezri Konsa and Michael Keane would be those two. James Ward-Prowse, he's probably going to go for Gareth Southgate. Again, I wouldn't take James Ward-Prowse. I'd take Jude Bellingham. Anybody who saw what Jude Bellingham was capable of against Manchester City will know the reasons for that. And Mason Greenwood over Jadon Sancho. I'm a Man United fan, but that can't run. I want to see Gary's reasoning behind the Mason Greenwood one in particular.
Why has he made it into your squad at this stage?
I think he's a brilliant finisher. I think if Harry Kane got injured, then I think we've seen Calvert-Lewin tonight, what Calvert-Lewin is. I see Calvert-Lewin as somebody who is against a top team, half an hour to go, we're 1-0 up, to run the line, run them ragged, close down, harass.
Totally agree.
Potentially get a goal, but I think his finishing is a little bit erratic. I think if England are going to need a goal, they're 1-0 down against the team, I would bring Greenwood on because I think he's a finisher. He's a brilliant finisher, a better finisher than Rashford.
It's an interesting one, this, because I think if we were 1-0 down, I'd like to see Dominic Calvert-Lewin come up front with Harry Kane. I think Harry Kane could easily drop off of Dominic Calvert-Lewin, let him play as the sort of dominant number 9 and play off knockdowns. I think Mason Greenwood this season has actually struggled with his finishing at times. He's got into some great areas and his all-round play has actually developed, but some of his finishing this season has been a step back from what we saw last year. And I'm sure across the course of his career we'll find a middle ground in there. But if you're taking him based on finishing, I don't think he's been at it this year. Love Mason Greenwood, but doesn't warrant selection over Jadon Sancho. Let's be real.
All right, let's have a look at Jamie's 23.
All right, so here's Jamie Carragher's 23 before he gives his explanation. So obviously he was missing 3 players as well. And he hasn't picked Sancho either. Neither of them have picked Sancho. Disagree with that massively. Sancho outstanding for Borussia Dortmund this season, even after a bit of a wobbly start. I think that Manchester United move might have been playing on his mind a little bit at the start of the season, but the last few months has been outstanding, even though he has been injured quite recently. Connor Cody, I can see why Connor Cody would go. Jamie's obviously put him in there, as I'm sure he was about to explain, that if we do choose to play a back 3, Connor Cody is used to that. Commanding, mature, experienced centre-back. Not totally averse to that. And Reece James is an interesting one. I just don't think you need 3 right-backs. I don't think you need them. And I know that Reece James is probably the best wing-back of the lot of them, but I'm just not overly convinced you need 3 right-backs. I don't think you need that many defenders. What is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 defenders. I don't think you need 9 defenders for what's going to be potentially a 6-7 game shootout. Jude Bellingham, I agree with totally. I would take Jude Bellingham, but I wouldn't take 9. And yeah, as I said, Sancho's got to be in.
Adding 2 more defenders, Connor Cody
Let's
and
hear the
Reece
reasons
James, and Jude Bellingham, who
yeah.
we saw with England last week coming into the midfield. Let's talk about him first then Jamie. Jude Bellingham, what was it impressed you about him that puts him ahead of the likes of James Ward-Prowse that Gary's gone with?
He's playing for Borussia Dortmund in the Champions League, and I think he's going to be a star of the future for England. I think he's one of them who'll be in the squad who
It's interesting though, if you've picked Jude Bellingham, why not Jadon Sancho? Also a star of the future, playing in the Champions League for Borussia Dortmund.
You'd always look at those 2 or 3 players who maybe aren't involved as much, but you're almost putting him in the squad for the future. Not to say he's not good enough, by the way. He's playing in the Champions League for Borussia Dortmund to be involved tomorrow against Manchester City.
Fair.
So, yes, Ward-Prowse,
I would
I
also
think, is a
pick
very
him for that
good
reason.
Premier League player, but this lad's playing at a higher level.
He's gone with 3 right-backs. You can have your say on that now.
I mean, it's bizarre.
I agree.
He's on with 4 centre-backs, 3 right-backs and 2 left-backs. He's on 9 defenders, which, to be fair, I mean, it is bizarre.
You said Garrett's got to go, if he wants to win the tournament, he's got to be pragmatic, didn't you? And he could go to a back 5 as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I also
Well,
want
8
Trent
defenders.
in. I want Trent in because you're talking
from
about
Liverpool.
Ward-Prowse. No, I want Trent in because, as I said earlier on the show, when he's changed his mind, obviously over 90 minutes, he's had that much stick on social media about Trent. But you want Trent Alexander-Arnold in that position where I think only Kevin De Bruyne's better than him in world football.
Ooh.
Now, whether that's a wing-back, right-back, or right of a midfield 3.
No, disagree with Carragher here. I just don't want to see one of the outstanding right backs in world football playing in centre mid for England. It's so England to do that as well. It's so England. And I could actually imagine happening, but I just don't want to see players play drastically out of position for the first time at a major tournament where it is literally shit or bust.
This is a player who's got to 2 Champions League finals. The Champions League's a higher level than international football, I can assure you. We've both been there. And this is a player who's played against every top player there is.
Slightly unfortunate timing after the Vinicius Junior and Asensio incidents midweek, but I digress. I do kind of agree with Carragher. I think some of the criticism of Trent's defending is over the top, even though over the past 7 days, it's not been great.
Who would I trust more to play in the right of a 3 in midfield or in that position where you're talking about in the last 20 minutes of a game? Ward-Prowse plays there. Gareth will trust Ward-Prowse in that position rather than putting Trent Alexander-Arnold in the right of a 3 in midfield.
Yeah, I do.
Because he
I kind of
plays
agree
there
with
for his-
that.
He plays there for his club, and Gareth does this, and he's, to be fair, been
It's
proved
a
right
big,
by playing
big
players that are less
risk to play
fashionable.
Trent in central
managers over the
midfield
years for
when
England
he
have
hasn't
picked
played
players who
there
play
for his
clubs that have
club.
been more
It's a
fashionable
different
in top
role.
football. Gareth, to be fair, has done it a different way, and he's proved to be right. And on Ward-Prowse, he gets into that position in the right channel. His delivery is exceptional, by the way.
Still
It's
wouldn't take him, though. I
exceptional
still
on
wouldn't
set
take
pieces
him.
and in open play. So that's why I put Ward-Prowse in to deal with the area that he's just...
The reason I wouldn't take James Ward-Prowse as well, I know that people will be like, wow, you take him for his set plays. I don't want to take my 4th choice central midfielder for set plays. Not going to be on the pitch enough to contribute to those set play moments. If he was taking every corner, then maybe. But if he's only on for 5-10 minutes, not sure why you'd take a set piece specialist just for 5-10 minutes.
Jadon Sancho is almost what I've said about Jude Bellingham. He's playing at a really high level. His numbers are off the scale. I've just never been fully convinced in an England shirt yet, and I just think with the emergence of...
It's a fair enough point by Jamie Carragher. He's not been exceptional for England, but we haven't seen him at a major tournament yet, and I would say that he's got to be given the opportunity to perform for England on the biggest stages before you totally write him off in an England shirt. I think he's probably one of our outstanding 3 wingers, certainly level on par with Marcus Rashford. Yeah, even though I do see where Jamie's coming from, personally would still take him.
If Shaw got injured in that first game, Saka, who at times can play on the right wing, would you really want him as a left-back in a back 4 if you were playing a back 4 in a...
I know what Jamie's saying here. Saka would be very close to selection for me as well because of his versatility. However, I just couldn't see which players you drop for Bukayo Saka. I think his best position is a right winger, and I don't think he's as good right now. He might well become that in a few years. Don't think he's as good right now as your Jack Grealish, Phil Foden, Marcus Rashford, Raheem Sterling, Jadon Sancho, who are the wide men. And then at left back, if he comes in as left back cover, I don't want to take 3 left backs. So Bukayo Saka would probably be one of my first reserve players. But yeah, I totally agree with Jamie on this one.
All right, let's have a look at the actual 11s that they've chosen. And there's agreement again. This is what we've asked them to do. Come up with an 11 for the first.
Yeah, I mean, those... what is that? That's pretty much nailed on, those 7, isn't it? Like, those 7 names there are pretty much unchangeable. I don't think anybody watching this wouldn't have those 7 names in their team. And if they say they would, I think they're pretty badly wrong.
First game, what's your ideal selection for going into the tournament? And there are 7 nailed down positions. You've got Stones, Maguire and Shaw, Rice and Mount in midfield.
Tell you what, before we see their reveals, I would go in goal... Dean Henderson, if he puts together the next 7 games. I've previously said Nick Pope on videos, but I think his emergence as Man United's number 1 is propelling him to that top selection. Right back, I would still go with Trent. Central midfield, the other one there, if he's fit, Jordan Henderson. If not, probably have to end up going for Calvin Phillips. It's an absolute myth that you could play like a Foden and a Mount in there. Have to have that box of 2 centre-backs, 2 defensive midfielders for England. It's just so crucial. And then my other winger, I would probably go torn between Jack Grealish and Marcus Rashford. Jack Grealish, I think.
Sterling and Kane as 2 of the forwards. So goalkeeper, let's have a look what Jamie and Gary have gone with.
Oh, Pickford. No.
Let's see if we've got a surprise at right back. I must dread having another conversation about this. So maybe we won't.
The thing is that you can see where they're both coming from, see both sides of the argument, and you have to kind of agree with both of them because Kyle Walker should be starting against the top calibre of opposition. I think he is a better defender than Trent, but Trent's a better attacker than Kyle. So I would start him against some of the lower calibre of opposition. I think they can both be right, is effectively what I'm trying to say here.
Won't. Jamie's gone with Trent and Gary's gone with Kyle Walker. All right, let's go.
This is because we're playing Croatia first game. Perisic is quick, he's powerful, and I think that Walker's better suited to him.
Listen, I see a lot of teams, and we haven't done this, where they pick either Rice and Henderson, and they maybe pick Foden in there and Mount. I think that's a nonsense. And
yes,
that's how they
Jamie.
get criticised for. There's 2 holding midfield players. There's no way England can go into this tournament with one of those players and Foden there and Mount.
100% agree.
I think Grealish and Foden are more part of the front 3. I think Mount's more part
100. Preach, Jamie Carragher.
of the midfield 3. So that's why I'd have that creativity with Mount in there. But I definitely think you need those two players, whether it's Phillips or Henderson or Declan Rice, in those positions. And I think the criticism of the manager for this two holding midfield players is a nonsense. Because when I see some of the teams, it's just getting all the attacking players in there. Everyone wants to be...
It's not Ultimate Team. It's not Ultimate Team. You can't just cram players onto the pitch that are all superstar attackers. Have Foden, Mount, Grealish, Kane, Rashford. Like, you've got to be realistic. England need two defensive midfielders to create the box, to allow the fullbacks to get on the outside and allow the creative players in that front three to perform. You've got to have two DMs, surely. The only way you can play with a singular pivot and two more advanced players is if Mount changes his role and plays as a drastically deeper central midfielder than he has for his club.
All right, one more position in the forward line, as both have gone with Kane and Sterling.
Yeah, pretty
James
close.
has gone for Jack Grealish.
Again, I think this would be dependent on fixture. Against Croatia, I'd be tempted to go Rashford, where we're not going to see as much of the ball and we've got to counter-attack on them. I think Rashford's more deadly. When we are going to see loads of the ball against the Scots, Grealish to pick them apart. I think you've got to have a little bit of give and take there.
And Gary, Marcus Rashford.
Yeah, I mean, I've looked also at the team that we're playing against in the first game, which he wasn't aware of until we told him in the break, that it's Croatia. So I would say that we could end up being without the ball. And I think that having those two quick players, I always think Harry Kane needs players doing that. You know, Son and Mora or Bergwijn, whoever it is. He's always better when he's got players
the
running
front
past
three
him.
that was very successful doing
Sterling
that.
and Rashford.
Very, very. He needs those players running
Even
past
Sancho
him. I think if we're not
Rashford.
going to have the ball and Harry could be up there, if you think about how Harry's played for Tottenham this season, where he drops into that deep position, he picks up the ball. I can see that against Croatia, and then those two really arriving quickly. You know, we've got good players in certain positions, but when it really matters, that final third of the pitch, that world class, we just have one or two maybe. And so ultimately a lot of things need to go right for England, for Gareth, but I think we've got a great chance. We've got a great chance because I think he's got a good group of players. He's got a really good manager who knows how to do well in tournaments. He's got the most experience out of anybody in terms of coaching in tournaments, under 21 tournaments. He's been obviously with England as a player in tournaments since in the good and the bad, Euro 96 then to Euro to 2000 and things like that. To me, I trust in him completely. But this is the best chance. My fear after the last tournament was, when we walked off that pitch against Croatia, was that those players wouldn't witness a semi-final again. And maybe that comes from my personal experience that I had. A little Stuart Pearce comment that came to me after Euro 96 when we lost that semi-final that night against Germany. He said, this could be as good as it gets. And I was 20 at the time, and I didn't believe it. He was right. And those lads that were in sort of World Cup semi-final against Croatia 2 years ago, I hope they get that semi-final chance again.
All right, so that was my reaction to Carragher and Nev's picks for the England squad at Euro 2020. Some interesting shouts in there. Also, if you want me to start reacting to more punditry and stuff like that, hit the like button. Let me know what you want me to react to in the comments below. Let me know your England squad in the comments below. Thanks very much for watching, everybody. We'll see you later.